Hi there, everybody. I'm KraigKann. Right now, on this edition of Tracks to Success, what does it take to lead sports sponsorships for one of the world's top professional services firms across leagues, teams, and global events? Well, when the business of sports meets the business of leadership, this guest is right in the middle of the action. A principal figure at one of the big four. He's the firm's national sports industry leader and a power voice at the table when major sports leagues, major league teams, and top tier sports organizations are looking for insight and a big picture partnership strategy that moves the needle. From Super Bowls to major golf championships, his job is about more than signage or suites. It's about aligning values, building relationships, and maximizing return on one of the biggest stages there is. His name is Shawn Quill. His inspiring story of success starts now.
Welcome to Tracks to Success. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories, how they found their way to the top, and how their path can help you do the same. Here's your host, network broadcaster, C-suite executive, best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, KraigKann.
Shawn, it's great to have you on this podcast. Been looking forward to it for a while. We've shared some similar journeys and a path, and you've been about sports and strategic communication, as have I. So great to spend time with you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Craig.
Yeah, I'd argue that you have one of the most unique roles at a big corporation in America, maybe the world. I mean, do you pinch yourself and think the same thing?
Well, I love what I do. So I'm grateful for it, grateful for the role. And I think that, anyone who is working at a brand in sports and sports sponsorships, I have a lot of similarities with. But yeah, I do have some unique parts to my role now in the marketplace, serving sports organizations. That's probably a little bit different. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sure looks like it's fun in following your journey. We're going to go through that a little bit, but at the end of the day, tell me if you agree with this. You're selling without truly selling, right? You're not selling like dollars and cents all the time. I feel like you sell relationship. I feel like you sell partnership, and I feel like you sell awareness for sure. Would you agree with that?
100%. That's it. That's exactly it in a nutshell. We serve most of the sports leagues, 50 plus teams, facilities, other organizations around sports, and that's what it is. We're selling relationships with a trusted advisor who's going to help those organizations through their journey. So whatever services KPMG provides, really, in our industry, people are buying from people that they trust. They're buying from people that they've gotten to know and built a relationship with. And so actually, whether they're buying, whether the clients are sports organizations, so my industry, or whether there are other industries that we serve, the currency is the same. It's that relationship. So everything that I do is around building those relationships, both for the sports organizations that I'm selling to, but also for all of our partners across our firm, for all their industries. Our sponsorships really are designed to enable them to build relationships. That's number one.
I love how you just use the word currency because to me, a lot of people talk dollars and cents, but they don't talk about eyeballs and awareness.
Mm.
And that in today's landscape, really in business, is such a big thing. How many eyeballs can we get on this? Can we create word of mouth marketing? How big is that in your mind as a currency, if you will?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a former global chairman who used to say that relationships is the meat and potatoes, and he said the branding is just the gravy. And it's a bit
Hmm.
ironic in classical sports marketing or marketing overall that you would equate the branding and the impression, the eyeballs, as you said, to being the gravy. You would think no, that's first. But and that is the case for a lot of companies, consumer products and things like that. But for an accounting firm, most of our buyers, the C-suite at Fortune 1000 companies, they know who the big four accounting firms are. They know KPMG, they know our competitors. And then it equates usually to the decision making. What's the differentiator is the relationship. So it's not bad that we have our brand out in the marketplace, but it is a bit of the gravy on the meat and potatoes. And I think the only difference to that is that often people don't understand the full breadth of services that KPMG provides. So what we try to do is use our sponsorships to tell stories, to enable people to learn more about what we do. And that's been a lot of fun because, that it's less about just putting our logo on the side of a building. It's more about trying to tell a story that's compelling and interesting and showcase the work that we do for our clients.
Really, really well said. And that's what I want to dive into. So for everybody listening and watching, here's the deal. Shawn leads KPMG's sports practice and sponsorship portfolio. That in a nutshell is what you do. Now, when you think about branding or building strategic awareness for brands, for events, all that sort of stuff, you just talked about gravy. So I'm going to say, what is the secret sauce to doing that?
Well, I mean, anytime we're evaluating a new sponsorship in our portfolio, it's about, we look at a number of aspects to it. The first and foremost, though, is cultural fit, that it is something that authentically reflects our brand, is who we are, is standing for the things we want to. And so like that fit is a big part of the brand and the brand fit for us, and that it would be an enhancement to us. So certainly whether that be an individual athlete or a property or what have you, like that's number one. Certainly we look at the return and the metrics in terms of the audience that they'll reach, the demos, the reach overall, the channels that they're in. But it's about fit for us. And I think a lot of our sponsorships in the past maybe have been a little unconventional because of that. We've looked to try to do something that reflects who we are, more than just what's popular. And, I mean, one big example is that as we got involved in women's golf long before women's sports was in vogue, and we felt like there's a real opportunity to make a difference and showcase sort of who we are, and the way that we care about our community and, what we wanted to reflect in the market.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that specifically and a couple of other examples that are big to KPMG as well as we move forward. I want to back up a little bit and I want to get a little more personal, and we'll get back into the KPMG world and the big picture world of the industry that you're a big part of. And speaking of secret sauce, yours as a kid growing up, like, did you think that this was something you were going to do? If you took me all the way back to Shawn Quill, the 13-year-old, I know what I was like when I was 8 and 9. All I ever wanted to be was on TV or to be a sportscaster. What about you? What was your childhood like, and who influenced you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a very long and windy path, and no, I definitely didn't always know that I wanted to work in sports. I think, when I started, it wasn't quite a profession the way that it is now. I did read Mark McCormick's book when I was in high school, about what you didn't learn in Harvard Business School. And I think that really planted a seed. I thought I was going to be a sports attorney. I interned for a law firm in high school, and I was, not exactly the cool kid, but I was carrying around a briefcase and interning at a law firm. And I definitely thought that was the path. And then I took a couple of turns along the way before I actually got back to sports. But it was always something that was a part of my upbringing and something I was passionate about. I played 3 sports growing up, and grew up in Buffalo, New York, was a true blue Bills fan. As much as it pained me, saw 4 Super Bowl losses straight, like during my formative high school years. So there's always been this desire to be involved in sports, and I'm an athlete, but not a good one. So working in it was a better option than trying to make it pro.
Yeah, I don't want to give you PTSD, but I covered the Super Bowl with the Norwood kick, so I apologize about bringing that up to you, but I was there.
Tracks to Success is proud to have the support of Ahead, true innovators in premium headwear. For more than 25 years, Ahead has been outfitting golfers and supplying headwear for the game's most prestigious events. Head over to aheadshop.com and explore their incredible collection of major championship golf hats. And don't miss their lineup featuring your favorite college teams. If you're looking to dress for success, Ahead is the perfect brand for you. So think ahead and look for it at pro shops and special events across the country. And how about this? For listeners of Tracks to Success, Ahead is offering one of its biggest discounts ever. Visit aheadshop.com and use the code TTS30. That's TTS30 to get not 20% off your purchase, but 30% off. That's right, 30% off with code TTS30. Ahead, the finest in headwear and the official headwear of the Tracks to Success podcast. Available now at aheadusashop.com.
Talking with Shawn Quill, national sports industry leader for KPMG. You, my friend, have your hands on a lot of major events. The KPMG Women's PGA, you and I worked together in helping to kind of grow awareness for women's sport. And I believe that is the key there. And I love the way you phrased it. But I'm going to add a few others as well. The Super Bowl, you've done some stuff with the Super Bowl, and recently a partnership with the Mannings. I mean, those guys, talk about exposure, my gosh, and really nice pictures that you've been posting with all these people. I mean, it shows me how tall you are, actually, and the company you're running with, which is really cool. So I want to ask you a question, though, that's bigger picture. What does a successful sponsorship or partnership look like to you, and what doesn't work?
Yeah, I mean, for us and for our brand, I think what works is something that's going to be really unique and memorable. Our target audience are like C-suite executives of Fortune 1000 companies. They get invited to stuff all the time. They can go to a game, they can go to a concert, see something in their local geography, but it's those money can't buy experiences, that access to people that they wouldn't, to do it in a creative and memorable way. That's the foundation for us. It's got to be unique, and then something that enables them to build a relationship with our people. As I was talking about, that's critical to our business, that relationship building. And so if you combine those two elements in a way that's unique and memorable, that's what makes a sponsorship work for us. You mentioned the Mannings, Peyton and Eli. We've been doing these events with them called Inside the Huddle. And basically what it is the ESPN Manning cast that you've seen on TV on Monday night. We basically recreate that on a Thursday night, not with a broadcast audience, but just with a private audience. So, the idea is that you're sitting on the couch watching the game with Peyton Manning, and a live game, and hearing his thoughts and seeing, what he thinks about that, and then hearing stories. And what could be cooler than that for a football fan? That's definitely unique and memorable. And you're doing it with whoever brought you there from KPMG. And that's what makes it work for us. And they're fantastic, both of those guys. And between them and Steph Curry, it's not helping my issues with my height, so like I'm just like a different sized human being than all of those guys.
All you got to do is get a little more lift on the hair, just a little more product, and give yourself a couple extra inches. When you talk about time spent with those people, all right, and we'll get into Steph in just a little bit. These are big people, but at the same time, it boils down to a fundamental thing that I talk about in my workshops and other speaking opportunities, which is the value, the importance of connection and selling you first. Okay, so I want to put a little pressure on you here, because ultimately you are that guy for KPMG that is the front man of relationship building and connection. How important is connection and the value of an individual?
Yeah, I think that it's the most important thing. We have an incredible team that I'm a part of, and I think each of the people on our team serve in different capacities to bring these events and what we do with our sponsorships to life. But something that's interesting, I think, or unique, is that every ambassador relationship that we have, so whether it be Peyton Manning or Steph Curry or Mariah Stackhouse or Colin Morikawa, we have an individual on our team who's responsible for that relationship. They're a player liaison, and their job is to have that connection, so that that person doesn't feel like KPMG is some big sponsor. They know that Shawn or Liz or Ryan or whomever are their person that they can go to and that they feel that connection with. And you're right. I mean, the start of all of these relationships started that way. They started with that personal connection. I'll never forget the time that we met with Steph Curry's people, and they weren't even pitching a sponsorship to us. We came to them through Mariah Stackhouse, one of our golfers, an LPGA Tour player. Mariah had been invited by Steph to his first inaugural event. she called me up afterwards and said, Shawn, this is something we need to get involved in. It's really cool. I think it's a true alignment with what you're trying to do, what I want to be involved in. And we approached Steph's people. That's the opposite sell. They weren't selling us something. We went to them and said, we think we can make this, take it to the next level with you. And we established that connection. And it was about building something together. It wasn't about a transaction. And I think all of our relationships we approach that way. They're about building something together, and they do revolve around that connection, to your point, that personal relationship that we cultivate and work on. And I got to say, that's the part that I enjoy the most about all of it, is like building those connections with people and really being involved with them. And when you're working with great people, that's I think a big component of your happiness with your job.
Talking with Shawn Quill from KPMG, and he is a principal, he's a partner, but by and large, he's all about strategic sports relationships. We talk a lot about brand on this show. I talk about it quite a bit. You're obviously the face of a big brand, or in these roles, you become that. So I want to talk about that a little bit, about how much you think about your brand. And hopefully we help other people realize the importance and the value in the brand that they carry with them each and every day. Because I just did a workshop recently, and I always ask people, by show of hands, how many of you believe you are a brand? And I will tell you, Shawn, half the time, the room, maybe it's a third who will raise their hand. And it's so wrong. So how much does your personal brand, the Shawn Quill brand, or anybody's, matter in the role you have?
It matters tremendously. Sort of some words that I've always lived by is that you have to hold yourself to a higher standard than anybody expects of you. And I think I've tried to start in that path since I was young, and outperform that as you go. And I think that, in our business, because it's a relationship business, because what we're selling at KPMG is truly our people and our knowledge, our expertise, is that like each of the partners at KPMG are the brand. And we're who are representing the firm in the marketplace. And so, we're actually encouraged to think about it in that way, that people are buying because they, have an affinity and a relationship and a trust with each of the partners at KPMG, that they're buying whatever services they might be procuring. And so we do think about that. We think about how we show up in the market. We think about how we show up in our communities. We think about, what it is that we're standing for. And so, that all of that speaks to the kind of sponsorships that you have too, because you have to be around people that are going to be edifying to what the image and the brand that you're trying to portray. And so I feel like I've been very fortunate. It started with some of our first sponsorships, but I've been around just some tremendous people who have unbelievable brands in the marketplace. And I've been along with that. And that certainly enhanced my brand, certainly in sports, is the ambassadors and the properties that we've been associated with. So that's been, I'm grateful for that. But it is something that we think about and that we're intentional about.
Yeah. On a personal level, I mean, you and I have known each other for the better part of 15 years, going back to my time at the LPGA, leading communications, and you at KPMG. But here's the thing, like, you were there from what I believe is really the beginning of something that truly elevated. I mean, the role that you have, and this is cool for people. I don't think they sometimes understand what's possible. And you've helped build something that really was not such a big deal at that time, but it's really become something. You guys are everywhere.
Well, you're kind to say that. I think that we were, our hope was that we would be a catalyst for change in women's sports, which is a really big ambition to have. You have one sponsorship and you think you're going to change things. But that was really what we saw. We were involved in men's golf, and we were finding that more and more women executives were rising through the ranks to the top levels of these companies. And we didn't really feel like we had something that enabled us to build those relationships with them. And so we thought, let's sign an LPGA tour player. And we tried that with Stacey Lewis. She was our first female ambassador. The events the first year were like off the charts. We couldn't believe how amazing it was. And we knew that we needed to reach more female executives. And so we were trying to find a unique way to do that. And then we realized that there was just this lack of equity between women's golf and men's golf. There was just a dramatic difference in terms of what the players were provided, the exposure that they got, the stages that they played on, the way that events were managed. and we thought we could really do something here. We've learned something from men's golf. Let's see if we can make an impact. And I think we didn't realize at the time what we were starting. Between the tournament and the purses, we really started, I think, what was a bit of a race around purses and compensating the players appropriately for being the world-class athletes that they were. And then some of the stuff with Stacy, when she got pregnant for the first time, we gave her maternity leave, which had never been done before, which we were shocked to learn that. And then it turned out there was, some other athletes that were speaking out about the fact that they weren't getting a leave. And so a lot of that did change women's sports. And so we were there before it was in vogue to be involved in something that was on the rise. It wasn't on the rise, and I feel like when I look back after all the years when I'm done working, I feel like that will probably be one of the things I'm most proud of, is that we started something that's, enabled true change and growth in women's sports. And so, it's great to reflect on that and to think about the impact that we had.
Yeah, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more in just a bit and kind of go through three key partnerships that I think really stand out for you. I want to go back to strategic awareness. And I always tell people that it's not just about companies, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in this particular episode, but how does the average professional, the average person out there, build strategic awareness in your mind? I'll share my opinion later. In your mind, build strategic awareness around themselves without feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm bragging, it's all about me and all that stuff, because people do get concerned about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I think rightfully so. I've always, it's taken a while for me to sort of step into that, to I don't know, be a self promoter in terms of what I'm doing, and sort of take back the curtain and show people, who I am more and what I stand for and my brand in the marketplace. I think for most people that is difficult to do that, to be a self promoter. But I do think it's important to showcase and highlight the things that you're doing that define who you are. And I think that, if you go back to like classical marketing, the whole point of it is so that when you get to that point of building the relationship or having that opportunity that comes to you, they already know who you are. They know what you stand for, and all of that. And I think that what I'm finding now as we approach the marketplace is, because I have established a personal brand, as we were talking about, people know a bit more about who KPMG is and what I stand for and the type of things that we prioritize. And so when we enter these conversations, I have more credibility. I have more permission to speak about topics. And so the marketing of yourself definitely provides that. It's not gonna cause you to win every deal or to get through the doors that you always need to get through, but it will give you that ability to have that credibility and that permission to have the conversation if you've cultivated your brand the right way.
So I believe people don't buy what you do, Shawn. They buy into why you do it and the value that you can bring to others in why you do what you do. So let me ask you that question, because you kind of just teed me up. So thank you. I'll use the golf term. Do you know what your personal why is? Have you ever thought about that? A lot of people don't.
What do you mean by personal why?
Why are you in this? Why do you get excited? I've seen you at work, okay? I've introduced you actually on stages, and I know what value you bring. But a lot of people don't truly know what that value is. Do you know your why behind your what?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, to go back to the Stacey Lewis and the women's golf piece, like I truly want to leave this in a better place. I want to make an impact in sports, doing something that hasn't been done before, and that's the why. I want to do something different. I want to do something that hasn't been done, and I think a lot of the stuff that we've done has been like that, whether it be in women's golf or even the Manning event. To use a very small example, like that hadn't been done. We went to them and said, "Hey, would you ever do it without a TV audience?" And,
yeah.
Why? This is a whole made-for-TV product. Why would we do that? Like it's about doing things different and making an impact. And so that's the why of why I do it. I'd like to say that I've helped evolve what we do as an industry, from activating sponsorships in sports and how sports is structured and the value that sports is given, when I'm all said and done, that would be the why for me.
Okay. So KPMG, if I go now to your employer, they don't just partner. You've talked about this already for logos or signage. That's not really what it's all about. There's purpose behind all these initiatives. So what's the message you believe, if you could kind of clarify that, that KPMG wants people to walk away with because of the strategic partnership? And as it relates to the brand, why is message so important?
Yeah, it is. It's critically important, I think. And, over time, that message evolves with, where you're trying to put yourself in the marketplace. But fundamentally, what hasn't changed since I've started at KPMG 21 years ago is that we want to be the advisor that you can trust, that delivers with excellence, and is the best at what we do. And our people, the corollary to how our brand is represented is that we are the type of people that will work side by side, shoulder to shoulder with you to solve your most complex problems. And the way that manifests itself is that, like, often we hear all of the big four have smart people with good experience and understand their industry, but the KPMG people are just so nice. They're just so, we can tell that they're bought into what we're doing. They're working next to us to solve this problem. And I think, our team reflects that in the way that we do our sponsorships. We roll up our sleeves and we're working with the properties and the entities and the ambassadors to bring things to life together. It's something that we're doing together. And I think, so that's what we're trying to communicate. That's our message throughout all of our sponsorships, is that you can trust us, we deliver with excellence, and we're going to work side by side with you to get it done. And we found that that's a pretty good recipe for success for us.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Craig leads the KPMG Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, team and individual workshops, mind-altering virtual programs. To learn more and to find out why the Elevate workshop has been labeled the most powerful experience in leadership communication, visit kannadvisory.com. And when you do connect, mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the interview.
Talking with Shawn Quill, national sports industry leader, and KPMG is a part of his brand as well, but he's built his own. I want to get into the table that you sit at, all right? Not the one at your house. You sit across the table from big time leaders in sports, business, media, okay? By and large, that's a pretty big responsibility. But I'll ask you this question. What's the biggest mistake that you see people making when they try to sell an idea? Because I guarantee that, and I'm speculating, but I think I know this about you, you're an ideas guy. You're sitting back, and one of the coolest things is taking that idea and making it into something, and then creating the awareness and going to Sahali and seeing a golf tournament come to life and all those different things that you do. But what's the biggest mistake you see people make when they're trying to sell an idea or sell themselves?
It's a great question. I've definitely been there many times at those tables. And in particular, I'm thinking of one example at the boardroom at KPMG years ago, when a very senior executive came in and tried to sell a big idea, and our people weren't ready for it. Our leaders weren't ready for it. And it wasn't that the idea was bad. It was that the approach was flawed. And fundamentally, it was around not building a relationship. And that to me is the biggest mistake I make, or I see people make, is that they'll come in aggressively with their idea and not have a relationship. And so without that relationship, that credibility that we talked about in the beginning, that's partly built by what you're doing for your brand, but what you do to start that relationship, people are often not ready to hear what you have to say. And I think that most of the big ideas that I've had in my role, I've had permission to bring those ideas because I've built those relationships with the leaders, both internally and externally, in order to get them done. You just don't walk into a commissioner of a sports league office and say, I've got an idea, you should do things differently. And they're like, who the heck are you? Like if you don't have that relationship, if they don't believe that you're the type of person they should listen to, you're not going to have that opportunity for change. And I have been fortunate to have a number of those meetings with sports league commissioners and team owners and CEOs of major corporations. And it does start with having that relationship. And so sometimes you won't have that big opportunity beforehand to build it. And so you got to find somebody to vouch for you to, before you get in there, to let them know that like, hey, you should listen to Craig. I trust him. He's fantastic. He's got great ideas. This is a real, this is an opportunity, I think, for you to get to know him. But if people come in too strong, too aggressively from a sales standpoint, and they haven't put in the time or made the effort to build that relationship and had those, or have other people speak for them, I feel like unfortunately, I think that's what sinks some good ideas. Like I said, it wasn't the idea that was flawed. It was the approach.
Yeah. One of the messages I share with people back to the boardroom is that your brand, in this case, the Shawn Quill brand, is not what happens in that room. It's what happens when you leave the room or before you ever enter the room. What will people or what do people say about you? What will they tell others? What's the impact you've made? And most importantly, how do you make people feel when you're around them creating these great ideas? All right, I said this earlier that I wanted to dive into a few what I believe are cool partnerships. And you've already mentioned Stacey Lewis, but that's where I'm going to start with this. And I'm going to go down 3 relationships that KPMG is a part of that I think are unique and very interesting to all of our listeners or viewers. I'm going to start with Stacey. Because it's the partnership with golf, and I believe it's the one that really kind of launched KPMG into something much bigger and was like, whoa, wow, look at the impact here, okay? Really blossomed because of her. I know Phil Mickelson was a part of it as well, but I want to focus on Stacey. Number one, what made so much sense about Stacey? Because you could have picked a lot of different people. Why did that work? Why was it so special?
Yeah. I mean, I remember that process of evaluating which player we were going to sponsor, which female golfer, and there were a lot of good choices, and we had a number of criteria. They had to be college educated. That actually took a lot out. A lot of those athletes go straight onto the pro circuit and aren't going to college. They had to, follow align with our brand and have the right values. But the number one thing that really drew us to Stacey was her story and the story of overcoming adversity. The fact that she had scoliosis, had reconstructive back surgery, a titanium rod and 5 screws in her back, and then went on to, after that surgery, to be a 4-time All-American, win the individual NCAA championship, go on and be an LPGA Tour player and win on tour. Like, that was just so staggering of a story, and we felt like so many people would be able to relate to the whole aspect of overcoming adversity. I mean, everybody has something, and you might not see it or experience it when you're with an executive. So that ability to have that story, we felt, would be really something special about Stacey. And, we signed her before she had won much. She won once, and it was a bit of a gamble. She ended up becoming, player of the year and #1 in the world. And, the most decorated American twice, right? I mean, it was unbelievable, the run that she went on as a player. But it wasn't that. It wasn't the performance on the field that made the relationship work. It was the fact that she had that grit and that determination to overcome adversity in the way that she had. And that helped us position her to relate to people in a really transformative way. And so that was truly, to your point, one of the sponsorships that's set us out on a new path that's been really effective.
I always tell the story when I was there at the LPGA about Stacey coming up to me. I know exactly where I was. I know what tournament I was at. It was early on. She'd won 1 major championship, and she realized that things were going to start coming her way. And she kind of tugged on my sleeve and said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." I don't tell this story too often, but she pulled me aside and she said, "I think my brand is about to get bigger, whether I like it or not, and I need some help in knowing what my message is, knowing what my story is, and being able to handle that spotlight." That takes a lot. That says a lot about somebody, that they're willing to do that. And I knew right away you guys had made a great decision, and it was transformational as well, because she brought so much to the game, even in wearing that KPMG logo. But she brought so much more to the game and to the LPGA. Let me move forward to another one. Let's talk about the NFL partnership. You mentioned the Mannings, but let's go bigger than that. Now, KPMG is aligned now with maybe the most powerful brand in sports. I mean, let's call it for what it is, right? Why now? Like, why is it? There's so many companies that would kill to be involved with the NFL. What does it say about where KPMG is headed, where it is now? Like, football's culture in this country. Where are you going to make an impact there?
Yeah, well, it is. You're right. It's interesting. I mean, so the NFL is a great relationship for us. Actually, the NFL is our client. We serve them in a number of ways with the services that we provide and advice that we give to them. And we love working for the people at the NFL. They're some of the brightest and hardest working people. And I know the fan following doesn't always see the people behind there, and usually fans are just upset about different decisions that might be made that reflect on their team. But what a joy it is to work for the team at the NFL. The executives are just incredible, and so our team, our engagement team that works on them, just they love it, and it's a lot of fun working for them as a client. And then our involvement from a sponsorship activation standpoint has really been focused just around the Mannings. It's been
Yeah.
not something that's this big huge thing. It's been very surgical, I would say. Like for us, like we're trying to reach a very small segment of the population of these C-suite executives, CFOs in particular, CIOs, COOs at these Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 accounts in a particular geography, and we want to find something that's really different. And I mean, that's why that idea with them has been effective, is that it's not something that people have done before. Like they may have seen, obviously they've seen Peyton Manning in a commercial, but they haven't sat on the couch with him and watched a game. They
Yeah.
haven't said like, been in a group that's so small that they can say, what just happened there? Why did he throw to that receiver? Why didn't he check down to his running back? Or why did that block happen the way that it did? Or to hear the stories, of course, of the great feats that they've had as athletes, either Eli or Peyton. That's always fun. But the context in which you can have that experience has been what's truly differentiating for us. And so, yeah, you can say it would be tough. You could just take someone to a game, and certainly we do that, and that's fun, especially if it's their team and they're pulling for it. But to do this type of a unique experience for us, that's sort of the way that we've carved out a little space that we found to be something that works for us.
So you first walk into Peyton Manning, and we talk about somebody that's getting a lot of exposure. I mean, these guys are all over the place now, Johnston and Murphy, and we had the president of Johnston and Murphy on this program. It was awesome. But like, take our listeners there. You go in first time. I mean, these guys are getting hit up by everybody right now, so you got to sell them too. I mean, they have choices.
They do for sure. I'll say we have a fantastic agency that helps us with all of our
Uh-huh.
stuff, and they had a relationship already with them. And then, finding that common ground around things, like they do love golf. Both of them are now members at Augusta National, and spent some time getting to know them there. And then, yeah, the uniqueness of the idea. I think, once you had, in that case, my brand didn't really go before me until somebody did vouch for me, and it was the agency, and we came to them with this idea. And
Mm.
and they were captivated by the idea and thought it would be effective too. And I know they've done some more of it now for others to do what they do in this way. And Omaha Productions, Peyton's production company, runs and manages the whole thing for us. And it's like they're producing a TV show.
Yeah.
They just don't flip the switch and broadcast it. They definitely could, because the content is so amazing, and it's different and unique every time because it's a live game. That's the part that I think is so compelling, is that you're not just going to a fireside chat with an athlete telling their stories. You're watching a game live with them and experiencing it together. And
Yeah.
so that production agency caliber to it, our agency, which is CAA Sports, that helped facilitate the whole thing, that was what was able to bring us together around the table.
Okay. On to the third one, and that's Steph Curry. You brought his name up. Underrated is the big opportunity here. It's not just about basketball, it is about opportunity. Um, why does Steph align so well? This is a platform. I've seen it and had the opportunity to kind of watch it a little bit with you all. An opportunity to give spotlight to some who need a spotlight moving forward. Can you share a little bit about the relationship there and why that one works?
Yeah, I mean, Steph Curry's story that's been well documented, and there was a movie that came out just about 2 years ago called Underrated. He was ironically, even though his dad was an NBA player, he was underrated in high school and didn't get the looks that he wanted in college, and that's the genesis of the whole idea. That he was a 3-star recruit and didn't get those looks, and so it's been his mission to give opportunity to people that might be underrated, that might be under the radar, that people aren't looking for, don't have the opportunity to be showcased in the right way, but have the talent. And so, yeah, he started both a basketball and golf underrated tour where he's providing the access, the opportunity for these athletes to be showcased in the right way. And the three things are access, equity, and opportunity. He wants the opportunities to be equal, for them to have these chances. And so we got engaged with it and came alongside of them because we felt that it was not just preparing the athletes for potential D1 scholarships and going on to be pro players, but it was building the whole person. What is their life going to be like off the course? Can they be a leader in whatever industry they end up being in? The numbers are obviously in any pro sport of making it to be a pro athlete are stacked against you. It's a small percentage that make it. And so our attitude was, are we providing the right leadership development training for these young athletes in order to succeed, not just as athletes, but then beyond the course? And so that's where we stepped up and offered to provide that. We'd done it with another program in the past. And so that was appealing. They'd seen it, and we had a lot of friends in common. And when we started making those relationships, and so it came together, and it's been really awesome to do it alongside of their organization. Like there's a true feeling that we have a shared purpose, like we're doing it together. And so much so that they invite us to like their team meetings to think about what we're doing for next year, which you don't do with someone who just signs a check and you put their logo on your property.
Looking for a guest speaker for your next event or annual conference? Craig's message is inspiring and empowering. Visit KraigKannSpeak.com to learn more about his topics and find out about his green shoe experience. It's a day your people will talk about long after he's gone. So visit KraigKannspeak.com and mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the show.
Shawn Quill is the guest. He's been awesome in sharing some really cool insight into what he does with KPMG. And now, as we kind of move toward the end of this episode, I want to get a little bit more personal and help those who are followers of this podcast. It's called Tracks to Success for a reason, okay? I don't believe anybody's journey is a straight line. Very rarely is it the person who spends 40 years at an organization or whatever. There's a lot of pivots, even within a role. What's been the most defining turn or pivot in your career?
Well, I get asked a lot, how did you get into sports and how did you make it? And I didn't go to school for sports management. I don't think the degree existed when I started. And the most defining moment was when it was a two-part moment. The first part was that I was leading campus recruiting marketing at KPMG, sort of helping to define our brand on campus for students. And our chairman at the time signed a deal with Major League Baseball. And they looked around and asked, does anybody want a second job and not get paid more? And most people would say, no, who wants to work twice as much? I raised my hand immediately. I was like, this is amazing. I've always wanted to work in sports. Here's my chance. So that was the first defining moment, was raising my hand and taking a chance and, going for something that I hadn't worked in, that I didn't know much about. And so I really cut my teeth on that sponsorship. And while I was doing that work in Major League Baseball, I was just working my butt off and putting the best foot forward all the time. I didn't know who was watching me. I wasn't really focused on that. I just wanted to do the best I could at the job and learn from it. It turned out that the chairman was watching, and this chairman and CEO, I owe a debt of gratitude for giving me this opportunity. But he then had dinner with Phil Mickelson. Phil was looking for a new sponsor, and KPMG decided to sponsor Phil. And the chairman reached out and through our marketing organization found me and said, I want Shawn to run this. And that was my big break. That was the defining moment in that what I had done beforehand when I didn't know anyone was watching, he was watching, and that gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. And then, we started up a whole department based on that, and the rest is history. That was the big moment that I had in order to break into sports.
So you learned that lesson in a great way. What's a lesson that you've learned along the way in a hard way? Something that was maybe, oh man, I messed this up, or I wish I could have a mulligan if we go to golf. But you're now grateful for, because it really taught you something.
Hmm. That's always a tough question. I think that there have been a lot of micro learnings of that along the way
Okay.
where, I feel like every day I'm learning something that I could do better.
hmm
Um, I think that early on, I wasn't bold enough with some of those sponsorships and relationships. I had these ideas that I wanted to see come to fruition. I didn't know how to get them done. And I think, like, back to what we talked about early on about having the relationship first. The very first time that I tried to really bring some of these sponsorships to life, were not as effective, were not successful. And it was because I hadn't built the relationship. And so that first time that I did that I went in there with this big idea and I wanted to get more budget to do something and was shot down, I learned that you couldn't get through your ideas if you didn't have the relationship first. And I think that that's common for people to come into something and say like, "Oh, I think I could do this better," or "I have an idea,"
Yeah,
or "You
sure.
should listen to me." But if you don't have that, established trust yet, they're not prone to just take a chance on some kid who's got a great idea. And that's what I
Mm.
was. I was a kid
Yeah.
that had an idea. And so the first couple of times that I had those big ideas, they did get shut down. Thankfully, I learned that lesson. And by that time, we talked about the Stacey Lewis point and the tournament that we signed afterwards. That tournament
hmm
was a huge leap of faith by our CEO, huge leap of faith. It was something
Yeah.
that I remember he told me, I never want to do that. Just sponsor a golf tournament. And so if I hadn't built that relationship, there's no chance that that idea gets through. So that was the first big mistake that I learned, and that's why I'm so focused on cultivating those trusted relationships.
You didn't sponsor a golf tournament, and this is a big thing for me. When I was at the LPGA, we don't do golf tournaments. We create experiences. That's what KPMG did with a major championship by giving it a facelift, if you will, and taking it to the next level. Experiences are really big. I think that's important to share with people. I got two questions before we go. Um, you walk into a room full of decision makers. Other people out there do the same. What's the first move to make an impact, positive one?
Hmm. The first move to make an impact. I think in any room that I go into a client meeting or even internally, the first thing I'm looking to do is find common ground. I'm looking to establish something that will tie us together, that we have something in common, whether that be, a school that you went to or a team that you root for or kids or family or, where you grew up or whatnot. That's the first thing I'm trying to do when I'm walking into a room, is to build a connection through something that we share in common. I know it's not, a revolutionary idea. Lots of people are trying to do that. I always make sure when I go into that room that I've done work beforehand, that I've prepared. I know who people are. I know what, they care about, where they went to school, things like that, so that you have a better chance of finding that early. But that's the first step.
Okay. You and I have known each other for quite a while. I wrote a book called Can You Get Our Attention? And as you know, because I used it at one of the talking opportunities that I've had with you, I give a green shoe out to people that signifies and symbolizes how do we stand out, how do we differentiate, and how do we make that difference. Um, you, last thing, what's the one thing you hope people remember or you get their attention about? Not about KPMG, but about you. What's the difference you want to make, the fingerprint you want to put down, the legacy you want to leave? What's that one thing?
Hmm. Well, what a big question. I
That's
think
why it was my last one.
I think that I truly want people to walk away believing that Shawn cared deeply about what he was doing and making a difference with this. Whether it be he cared about me and he wanted to see what was best for me as an athlete, as an ambassador, that he cared about, what he was doing with this property, this brand, the sponsorship, that he truly cared about it, that it was deep and personal, and that he cared about it. And that's the way I attack everything and the way that I approach it. And it's true. I can tell story after story of all these athletes, of things that we share in common, or these great personal memories that I have, because I truly cared about it. And I wanted to make sure that they were going to, really, really succeed and thrive, and that what we did together was going to matter. And so, I think that's it. I think when people look back, I want them to believe that I truly cared about it, and that was transparent to them.
I mentioned Johnston and Murphy earlier, and I only did that because of Peyton Manning and his new deal. And Danny Ewaldson, the president who's been on this, shared his journey. And I love the climb, playing guitar at one point and being a kid you never would see as a president of an organization. I can speak specifically about you, 15 years, and I know you had a job before then, but the transformation that you've helped create through KPMG, the difference you've made in the industry, you have a lot to be proud of. It's a really cool story, and I hope everybody that's listening and watching this can take a lot from it. I appreciate you a lot, and I've really enjoyed spending time with you over the years, and thanks for being a part of this.
Likewise, thanks so much, Craig. And you've made a real impact in what you've done, coming alongside of people and helping them with their brand. And I've seen it firsthand, what you've done to help people transform how they present themselves. So thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that there was something here that someone would glean that would be helpful to them.
I think they will.
Friends, success isn't just about the look of your resume. It's about the way you look, and dressing for success in the workplace is important. The way you look out of the workplace is part of your brand as well. Ahead, our official headwear partner, is all about helping you show off your best self. A hat says a lot about you. And Ahead doesn't just follow trends, they set them. Available at pro shops, resorts, and big sporting events around the country, and also online. By listening to this podcast, you get a chance to save big. Visit aheadusashop.com, use the code TTS30, and receive 30% off your order. That's aheadusashop.com, using the code TTS30. 30% off just for you. Ahead, the finest brand in headwear and the official headwear of Tracks to Success.
Well, it's time for Getting Ahead. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Let's talk about it just a little bit, pay it forward. Shawn sits at the intersection of brand, purpose, and performance. What he does, he's helping elevate voices and also visibility. Now, his title says principal. That's a big title, but his track record is all about leadership and awareness. And here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about strategic awareness. Shawn Quill's job is to elevate KPMG's visibility in the sports world and beyond, actually, through partnerships, sponsorships, and strategic relationships that build brand equity in all the right places for them. Now, what about you? What are you doing to create strategic awareness for yourself in your own career? You don't need a big title to think like a brand, and you don't need a sponsorships budget like KPMG might have to make meaningful connections. You just need to work at it. Strategic awareness starts with intentional presence. Know who you are, know what you stand for, and know how to stand up and show up when it counts. Bottom line is this: if you're always waiting to be discovered, you're probably not doing enough to actually be seen. So find ways to be relevant, align with purpose, make your moments matter, because those moments are really big in your career, and the right people, they are watching. Your next opportunity might just be watching you. Think about that. That's how Shawn operates, and that mindset, it'll sharpen your focus, and if you do all those things, it will accelerate your tracks to success. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I'm KraigKann. We'll see you next time.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and Craig's thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. Find it wherever you get your podcast and on the KraigKann YouTube channel and KraigKannSpeak.com.